you didn't hear a lot of voices in the NES, with an exception to like terrible examples like Bad Dudes. You know, when you beat a level on Bad Dudes and it's all
Yeah.
that was so good.
That was a good one.
It was so good I might get sued by Data East. It's Super Garbage Day! Welcome to Super Garbage Day, a show where two retro video game enthusiasts will play games they've never played, usually obscure games that are at least 20 years old, with the goal to find the treasure in the trash.
We'll dig through it so you don't have to.
I am B. Ross, and to my right is...
This is Mr. Miller. Nice to be here.
That's made me laugh every time you do that. Before we get into our topic today, I wanted to ask you a question. What is a really famous or popular retro game that you've never played?
Legitimately, if we're in our time frame, Final Fantasy VII.
Really?
Yeah, I watched people play it, and I'm well versed in the lore and what it's about, but I have never personally sat down and played it. A lot of those PlayStation games I haven't played because I was a Nintendo kid growing up.
Right.
And so I didn't have a PlayStation. I went the Nintendo route the entire way until my brother finally decided he wanted to buy an Xbox. And so that was the route that I went after that.
Okay, so, well, you know what's funny is I've never played Final Fantasy VII either.
Oh, well.
I've never been a Final Fantasy person. I not that I hate Final Fantasy, but I got into Suikoden. Like, that was it.
See, and I never played Suikoden.
That game, I just couldn't even.
My roommate's been playing through both of them recently.
1 and 2 on the PS1.
Yeah, he's emulating them through the PS3, I think. But
dude, Suikoden 1 is one of my favorite games of all time.
It's dope.
It's so good.
I mean, I spent last Friday. I was gonna, do my own thing, but then he was just like, "Hey, you want to see like how this battle system works?" I'm like, "Yep." And then I just sat there in his room and just watched him play.
It's got an incredible battle system that includes there's a huge roster of characters in that game. I think there's 108.
I think that's what it is. If you do it the right route, yeah.
And then you can have 6 in your party, and some of them actually have combined attacks. But then there's a whole separate battle system that's for wars that you have against that are like troops
that's what
on the
he
field.
wanted to show me.
Yeah, man, that game is a must play for everybody.
Well,
but
unfortunately, you've played it, so
yeah,
it won't be on this.
It won't be unless it's recommended by a listener or something. And what's funny is my answer to this question I asked you, which was, what is a really extremely iconic or popular retro game that I've never played? Chrono Trigger.
Oh,
never played Chrono Trigger.
See, and that's funny because that's one of my favorites.
I know, and I feel like I don't know why. I don't know why I haven't crossed the bridge yet on Chrono Trigger. It has everything that looks inviting. It looks fun. It's well renowned. It's considered one of the greatest games of all time.
And well, I didn't even play it until 5 years ago.
Okay,
well, when I was given a hack box.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just got a bunch of emulators on it, and I was running through just seeing what I should play.
Yeah.
And my roommate was like, "Have you played Chrono Trigger?" I'm like, "No."
You hear this, FBI?
Yeah. Hey, nothing wrong with emulators. I'm a big fan of it.
I agree too, because my whole idea on that is if you can't purchase the game and if it's not readily for sale via some kind of online store or some kind of Switch situation in regards to Nintendo's library, then yeah, I'm gonna play it. Like, what am I supposed to do?
It's conservatorship at this point. Like,
I'm not gonna play.
It's preserving art, is what it's doing.
It is, and a big part of the show is that I want us to really dive in and find things that are either good or bad. But to me, it's really entertaining because I feel like we will find some things that neither of us knew about, that maybe the world wasn't aware of, and perhaps we can get people to play these games and give us their own opinions.
Speaking of, that's a great segue into today's topic.
Oh, yes. Which is Rampart on the NES.
Yeah!
I love that Rayman noise. I don't know what to call it. It's just when you complete a level in Rayman 1. By the way, Rayman 1 is one of the hardest games ever made. We're not going to get into that, though. So Rampart. Oh, let me load my notes. Ha! Had them in front of me. Rampart is a 1990 video game released by Atari Games and Midway. It combines shoot 'em up, strategy, and puzzle genres. It debuted as an arcade game with trackball controls and was ported to home systems. It has a limited US release in October of 1990 and a wide release in early 1991. It was distributed in Japan by Namco. So, Rampart, that's Rampart. We spent the last 7 days playing Rampart. I played it every day. My son played it.
Oh yeah, what did your son think?
He was intrigued. He was watching me play it every day, and he was intrigued. He's like, "What is this game?" It just caught his eye.
Yeah,
the sound effects and the system of it. I'll tell you later about that though.
Yeah,
but let's go into first impressions. So, when you fire up Rampart, you immediately discover it's a strategy game. It's got castles. It's got kind of a battle rhythm music. That's a terrible description.
It literally goes
your standard drummer boy on the battlefield sound, and it pretty much just jumps you right into it. It doesn't really play around.
Yeah, there's pretty much no instruction at all.
There isn't. I did read the instruction manual, which is kind of funny though, because it really like sells its own lore to itself.
Oh, really?
It was describing things in the game like in really funny ways. It was like calling the guys that are on the land are like these stinky what was the term?
They call them grunts.
It was like these stinky grunts are trying to get, or I don't know if it was grunts, but it was funny. I wish I would have actually wrote it down. But the manual's like, it's got charm.
That's something I miss about modern games is the lack of manuals.
Yeah. And you're not ever going to get a physical manual anymore.
Right.
All you're going to get
at PDF most,
file. At most is a single piece of paper with a code on it.
Yep.
Or a QR.
Maybe you're lucky if it has a map of the controller with the buttons.
Right.
The layout.
I miss the days when games you'd play like this, like the entire storyline just on the back of the box or in the manual.
Right.
Then you just use your imagination. I kind of don't though, because there's a lot of games like in the last 20 years that have great storylines and do a good job. But I can't. This is 1990s NES. So you see the title screen. It just says Rampart. Everything's blocky. You quickly realize it's a puzzle strategy game. Once you hit start on your controller, it gives you an option immediately of 1 or 2 player, red team, blue team. If you're playing 1 player, you just hit start on the controller. You're automatically on the blue team. I don't know if that's different if you use a different controller part.
See, and I didn't have an option because I was playing it on an emulator on my phone.
We never play anything on the same thing.
I know.
Well, I guess we were both playing it technically on the NES.
But it was on the NES, and it does play very similar. Even emulated. It's but I would be curious if you plugged in like the player 2 controller only.
Right. I'm wondering if that would make you the red team.
And made you a red team.
Because you default to the blue team.
But ultimately it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't.
It would just be aesthetics.
It's aesthetics, yeah. It's not a. And then you're thrown into like the world map of choosing, your start. You can start on the beginner level, or you can you have a choice between the beginner level or the next level after that, which I discovered through my own playthrough that if you start on the second level and you beat it, not only do you get a 5,000 point bonus, but it automatically beats the beginner level.
Which is how I always started, just so I could get through that.
Well, of course. And plus you play things hard. Also, did you know we were playing, it defaults to easy.
Oh, yeah.
I saw that.
I never bumped it up, honestly.
I didn't either.
Because this game is hard.
It was hard at first.
Have you seen what the higher levels look like?
Nope.
It's insane.
I bet you it's just, I would assume that there's more ships because the way this game is played is you start with a base, you build a wall, you set cannons, and then you're trying to fight off incoming ships that also have cannons, and it's all round based. So a round goes like this. You pick your castle, it starts with a square wall around it. Within this space, you place 3 starter cannons, and then the round begins where you're firing at each other, and your goal is to destroy their ships with your cannons, and their goal is to break your walls down. After that round happens, you have a repair round where you are given random blocks, Tetris style, that you can move exactly like Tetris to rebuild your walls around your base. And if you have to connect all of it together, it'll turn black on the inside, which means you've resecured your base. If that happens after the build phase is over, which I think is anywhere from 10 to 20 seconds.
I think its average is like 12.
12? Okay.
Yeah.
You then are allowed more cannons because you did that. But if you don't secure your base or you leave one little space empty and open, it's pretty much game over.
Instant game over.
Game over.
You get 3 lives.
You get 3 lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And it's funny about the Tetris thing, because as soon as I saw the Tetris blocks, my brain went, oh, I know this game.
Right.
But I did not know this game because I'm over here being meticulous, trying to make my like perfect little squares.
Right. Me too.
And I had to break myself of that. It was just like, oh, does it fill a space? Slap it in there. I don't care.
It's a completely different take on Tetris using the Tetris assets, which is funny because you're trying to you're racing against the clock. And at this point, there's a lot of strategy there because, there are other castles around you that you have to claim.
Mm-hmm.
And so do you put your energy into securing your one castle, repairing it, and maybe like double enforcing walls around it? Or do you try to grab the castle next to you as well so you get more cannons and more real estate to place cannons?
For me, it depended on what the situation demanded, because there would be points where it's like, oh, this is an easy castle fix. I'll just retake my walls and then expand. But there were some times where I'd be playing where I would like, even when we just played our 2v2.
Yeah, we did.
Just before the, or 1v1, not 2v2. There's only 2 of us here. Where I just completely abandoned my cannons and was just like, I only have enough time to resecure a castle.
Right.
And so I just made a little tiny block around a castle and said, now I just survive for a round.
It's funny. This game, it reminds me of playing Battleship where you can see each other's boards.
Yeah.
But you put Legos around you'll put Legos around your battleships that you have to destroy before you can destroy the ships.
That's not a bad way of putting it.
Right. But single player is massively different than multiplayer. They're 2 completely separate games.
Right. We'll talk more about the multiplayer, but in just the strategy of it, sometimes it was just survive.
It was.
And especially if you had a bunch of the grunts, which they're just like a little sprite. Sometimes they'll sit there.
Well, let's talk about the enemies.
Okay.
So your starter enemies are these little ships. It usually starts with 3, I believe, at least from the get-go.
At least the first 2 levels, it starts at 3.
I think they only take 1 cannon or maybe 2 cannon blasts from you to be sunk.
It's 3.
It's 3, really?
Yeah.
Wow, I feel like I just smoked some of them though. Maybe it's because I had a lot of cannons.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're just button mashing,
right?
But yeah, it is 3. So they start you with 3 cannons,
and of course, every map has some ocean in it in single player because it's land versus sea battle, and you are always on land. The enemy's always in sea. So that's one of the enemies is the standard ship. And then the second enemy is kind of a beefed up version of the ship.
It's like a golden,
it's
red
gold
sprite. Yeah.
It's faster.
It also has I don't know if you noticed, it makes a whistling sound when it
does.
fires.
It has a different firing sound effect.
It creates craters, which is another obstacle.
Right. And the craters you can't build over.
You can't build on them.
They're permanently stuck around your territory. So you have to build around them or away from them. So in some cases, hindering any kind of plan you had for structural architecture.
It would make you have to abandon your original plan sometimes. Right. And then that's where I bring up the point of just like, well, my original castle is covered in craters.
Right.
Now I'm just going to make a wall around something else.
I'm going to try to grab the other castle near me.
Yeah.
Yes. Which is funny too, because I don't think they're really introduced till the 3rd level.
It depends on the difficulty.
Really?
Because I went and just not having the time.
Yeah.
To do a full playthrough on all the difficulties. I looked up some videos of people playing.
I did too. And I also was like, I'm just focusing on the easy level because it's intense.
Yeah. I watched a guy who played it just on medium even, and there were craters all over the place.
I bet you we watched the same videos because there's only like 4.
Yeah.
This is a very obscure title.
Yeah. Which is it. And we'll extrapolate on this more, is bizarre because it was huge when it came out.
Right. In the arcade.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was popular and it was released across a lot of consoles.
Yeah.
But I'll explain. I have a theory on why It wasn't that popular on the NES, or maybe we didn't come across it. But I know the sales weren't the greatest, at least on the NES.
Mm.
However, we're getting off topic. So the next enemy is a land enemy that looks like a little tiny tank. It's like one little block.
It's just a weird moving block. It's like 3 pixels.
But they're dropped off by the ships.
Yeah.
And those things are trying to pretty much beeline it to your openings, or the parts of your walls that are exposed and broken. And if they get to your castle, they actually take it away.
See, I didn't know that because I never had one get to my castle.
Wow, it's so good.
Because you can shoot them.
I know. I shoot them, but I found that out the hard way because I didn't know what they were when they were first introduced into my game. I was like, what is this? Like, is this supposed to be like the worst looking fire graphics I've ever seen?
And that's what I kind of thought it was at first. Then they started moving, and I'm like,
I know.
What is
I was
going
like, is
on?
this bees or a tank?
Yeah.
I'm not going to really, talk too bad about that, because then I realized quickly what they were after reading the manual. And yeah, they're grunts.
Yeah, so, I think they're supposed to be like a humanoid.
But thing. I call them tanks. They look like tanks.
Yeah.
Even though it doesn't speak for the time period.
Right.
But they I think if enough of them get to your base, it actually just your base disappears.
Interesting.
And so you're left with one less castle to build a wall around and to put cannons in.
And that's a mechanic I never experienced.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, and for the most part, that's all the enemies I could think of. I mean,
that's the only thing I ever came across.
Yeah. Yes. But that's enough.
I mean,
when you get to that last level, all of those things are just filling your screen. And you have like it gets to a point of difficulty where your map has 2 different bodies of water on it. And you have to pay attention to both sides. And they're just like letting you have it, dude. It's crazy. But it's ultimately a strategy game. It's turn-based. You just have to figure out what you're going to do. It's so funny. This game is really interesting in how like you start the game the same way every time, but then after that first round, your strategy always changes.
Yeah.
Because it's dictated by the damage taken to your walls. So if the damage isn't too bad on one side, you're like, well, I might expand towards that castle and grab that. Or like you said earlier, or nope, just going to reinforce this because it's all the time I have.
Did you ever purposely blow up your own walls?
I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah.
You can do that?
Yeah. So if for example, you're seeing that they're just like kind of punching little holes, like, little hard spot holes to fill.
Yeah.
You can then just unload on your own castle and make that a bigger hole so it's easier to fill.
As she said, I didn't know. I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah.
I did try to shoot the fires, and that didn't do anything.
You can't get rid of the craters. Those are permanent, but the grunts you can get rid of.
Yeah.
And you can blow up your own wall, especially if you place something stupidly and you need that space.
Yeah. Then you can
just blow that up. And
dude, I did not know this.
Yeah.
Son of a gun. Okay. Well, that changes things. I mean, so I'll be honest with you right now. I got super close to beating it. You asked me earlier when you showed up, you're like, did you beat it? And I was like, I'll let you know. The answer is no. I got very close though. And it was a very like white knuckle, like every move mattered, every second mattered. And just I got that, what happens in this game is you get down to the last second and it rushes you and you're worried and you're like, oh God, but it wasn't a bad feeling. It was like you're staying laser focused, but also still messing up.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's its own thing. It's not like Sonic underwater where it's you just can't jump over a wall. You're still doing all the right things, but you're like, oh, but I forgot that empty space on the top right. This whole time I built this side super good. And I'm like, why didn't it turn black? Because it turns black when you secure it.
There's so many times where I was just like, where is the hole?
Yeah. And you have to scan within like 2 seconds, but it's good. It's like, it didn't make me angry.
Yeah.
It made me be like, okay, I need to pay more attention. I need to focus on my strategy better here because I was too focused on this side and I let this happen, this slip.
Right.
That cost me the whole game. So, and you get 3 lives per game. You are allowed to come back. I think it's really forgiving too, because you will get your butt kicked and then it'll say, you want to restart. You restart with more firepower and less enemies.
Mm-hmm.
So it allows you to kind of catch up. I think that's really good design.
Yeah.
Because it allowed me to not just hit a wall and constantly hit this wall so many times that I had to get good.
Right.
I'm like, okay, cool. Now I can understand the level a little more.
It allows you to get good without having to restart, which is frustrating.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not Battletoads.
Because you can take what you learn from the previous mistakes,
right,
and be like, well, I'm not going to do that this time. And now I'm not under as much pressure because there's less ships out there.
Couldn't said it better. That's on point. And it is. And then you're amped up. You're like, all right, let's get it. Like I saw where I made a mistake, and then you're ready to do it again. You're not just like, oh, great, here this again.
Yeah.
They kind of lower the difficulty after you die on the same level, same round, so you can just kind of catch up. But when you're on your third life, that's it.
It's also, I really, I don't know if this was intentional as a design choice.
Right.
I'm sure it was, but the fact that the only way you lose is by not being able to build correctly. So you are the only person to blame. You can't just be like, oh, well, there were too many ships and I just couldn't.
I've never blamed the enemies. I've always blamed myself.
Yeah, it's just like, well, why didn't I see that hole?
The game promotes you thinking logically and critically.
Yeah.
Right? Because the ships are kind of dumb. They just do whatever. Matter of fact, I don't know if you did this, but I had a strategy where I would build walls in the middle of nowhere.
And they'll shoot
so that
them.
they would so they would target those.
Yeah.
And not so much my base. And it worked.
Yep.
I was like, well, so sometimes I would have a strategy one round where I'm just trying to secure the cannons I already have and not expand on that. And then once that's good, just throw a bunch of walls randomly throughout the land so that I'm not going to take as much damage the next round. And then I can actually start expanding and grabbing more castles.
See, and if I had extra time and I knew I couldn't get a castle,
right,
sometimes I would just make a square to make a little gun battery and just put a cannon in there.
Oh,
so you could just have a cannon out in the middle of a field somewhere,
right?
And that gives you a structure to also build off of and try and
take
another castle from there.
It's also like insurance,
yeah,
because it's easy to fix if it goes down, and then you're not out of the game,
right? Because you still
and you have your one cannon.
I do think you have to have a castle. I don't know if just having
you have to have one castle,
yeah,
but I didn't know you could just put a cannon by itself.
Yeah,
dude.
If you just block off an area, it turns black, and you own that area.
We
and you
just
can
play different games, don't we? We play the same game differently. It's so crazy. I didn't know you could do that, dude. I feel like, and I got so close to beating this game. If I would have, but we didn't talk to each other this time,
right?
Like our last episode, Blood Rain, we talked a lot to each other. We didn't really let the cat out of the bag, but this time we didn't talk that much.
No,
other than initially I told you like I'm kind of digging this game, like my first impression. It does get frustrating though, and there are some problems in the game.
I do have to say my first impression was just like, oh God, what did we get ourselves into?
We said it last time.
Well, but I mean,
except it was, oh no.
Yeah. Well, that was because it was a product of the time. This one was more like, I didn't fully understand the intricacies of the game.
And at first glance, you're like, all right, I'm like relearning chess right now.
And it was like, I was like, all right, this is lame. I don't know what's going on.
Right. And it's not really that attractive at first.
And because it doesn't tell you what to do.
No. But, to be fair, we didn't have the manuals.
Yeah.
I'm playing it on the Wii again. You're playing it on your phone.
Yeah.
But obviously when you came over right now, we played 2-player together. I was like, yeah, he's good at this game. Like, yeah, you made it happen.
Yeah. I mean, I will find a way.
Yes. Can we talk a little bit actually about the graphics and audio?
Yes.
We'll do that right now in this section. So the graphics are interesting. They're kind of a mixed bag. You've got this bare minimal block, green primary colors, nothing to write home about, but it has like 2 different graphical assets, which I think is cool.
So that is actually something I really wanted to talk about.
Yeah, is
when you're in like the planning stages and the building stages.
Yeah,
it's very bare bones.
It is. It's like you're looking at like an architectural map,
right?
Like you're drawing out like how something would look on like graph paper.
And it kind of looks really gross too, because you'll have like these jutting edges from like an L block that didn't fit right, or you get like the weird plus sign block that you just got to slap somewhere.
I hate that block.
Then you get but you'll get this, a bunch of like grid patterns, and you're just like, this looks gross. And then it goes to the combat stage.
Right.
And all of a sudden the actual graphical assets come in and they
look better.
They start building like cool ass castles.
And they're animated.
Like,
they're animated, and like the cannons look cool. The castles are 3-dimensional.
Yeah.
The ships are animated and like have like their cells are fully out, and like it's showing different wind directions. The cannonballs actually scale from small to large back to small, like they're actually arcing.
The cannonballs are really good. The physics on them.
Yeah.
The fact that you got to lead your shots and everything. The fire effects are actually pretty decent when the ships blow up.
Yeah, I agree. And they're fulfilling. They make you feel good. You're
yeah.
Like, yeah. And sometimes it happens late, and when you fire the cannons, there's a delay. It's not like Doom. You're aiming a gun and shooting it. You're aiming at an area, and there's a delay of like, as a cannon would, I assume. You shoot it and you hope that it lands where you want it to land, but you're also taking into account that your enemies are moving and you don't know which way they're going to go. You're hoping that they fall, either they stay still or they go the direction that you're.
Yeah, you got to lead that. You got to lead that shot right.
Lead the shot, like a sniper,
And back to just like how the castles look and stuff.
Yeah,
those gross patterns that make my I got to make this perfect square brain
right.
Trying to build the perfect castle. They end up looking way better when they're all janky because you get these like neat crenellations and like courtyards.
I saw that,
and like all this, like they randomly generate assets in there.
They didn't have to do that.
Appealing to look at, and they did not.
They didn't have to do that. They could have just shelled this out and been like no, it's going to look the same because it's easier to make. But I mean, I appreciate that they actually did that.
Yeah.
So to me, that's a sign of like they had a little bit of love in it, and also the audio. So there's not much to really praise in music, but the music is serviceable. It does what it's supposed to. I'm impressed with the voice work.
That exactly
for that system.
Ready, aim, fire, and it is as distinguishable.
You didn't hear a lot of voices in the NES, with an exception to like terrible examples like Bad Dudes. When you beat the level on Bad Dudes and it's all that was so good.
That was a good one.
It was so good I might get sued by Data East. But this is clear. It's like ready, aim, fire. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, like for 1990s Nintendo, that's impressive.
I will give them credit in when the fight is happening. It is only battle sounds. You only hear cannon blasts.
They get rid of the music.
Explosions. There's no music,
which is probably how it is in war.
It's very.
I'm not trying to,
but no, I mean it's got that eerie stillness.
But for sake of veterans or people who are active military, I'm not trying to be like, I bet you it's just like real war, this 1990s NES game. Like, but I like that it does cut out the music.
Yeah.
And then you just hear the sounds of war. You hear explosions and firing. And
what is honestly that's the easiest part of the game is the way you're like when you're just blasting with the cannons.
It's fun too.
In the long run of it, that's just you racking up points. It doesn't matter.
It's also really smart to me, as far as game design is concerned, that they decided to aim your focus on the building phases to just your area. But then when it's battle, you aren't even looking at what you were just focusing on.
I don't even care
you
what's going on.
Right towards that enemy and vice versa. And to me, that really kept it fresh because I'm not sitting there like observing my damage or having to give a crap because it doesn't matter. There's nothing you can do other than just hope that they don't mess you up enough that you can't repair in time.
And I think that's a smart move on just keeping the game with that pace.
Right.
Because when you are in the combat phase, that's all you're focused on. And then you have to switch your brain on a dime to go back to that. I got 12 seconds and now I got to build. And you're like, a completely different skill set.
Right. And you're like, okay, let's focus on this. But you do still kind of have to focus on the enemy because if you did not take all of them out, they're going to just add more to their fleet.
Right.
If you do take them all out, it just restarts with 3 more, of the enemy, because the way to win the round, or at least not the round, but the way to win the levels is you just dominate and capture all the castles for 2 rounds, or you just wait it out and survive 5 rounds.
Is it 5 rounds?
It is.
Because
it start at the 5th round, you win.
You can, because you can also blow up enough of their ships and they'll give up.
I didn't get that far, but I mean, I shouldn't say I got that far. I didn't win that way. I won with the other two ways. Like I just secured the bases, and then it's like 2 rounds of having all of them, and you win.
Yeah, because I think I've won on a 4th round. I want to say it's a 3rd or 4th round, just because I just wiped all the ships out.
But did you have at that point? You've had to have had all the castles.
No, I only had like 2 or 3 castles.
Interesting.
I just had like 12 cannons on the battlefield, so it was just like I could just blanket the ocean with
so cool that we just played different strategies, and I was unaware of that. Most of the time, I was playing the strategy of just surviving.
Yeah, I mean that is
you could legitimately beat these levels without firing a single cannon.
I 100% agree that.
Technically.
Yeah.
Because you're just building and just trying to survive the rounds.
And just war of attrition it.
Very hard, and I'm sure there's a weird speed run on it somewhere.
Oh yeah, it's just like a no cannon
no cannon run. But I kind of focused on that. Like a lot of it was
I mean, actually that's a legitimate strategy.
Right.
So it would be your first, I'm just thinking about how it would go. Your first one is going to build up and you just don't place cannons.
Right.
Then you let them destroy your stuff, and then you just make a thick wall around your first base just to secure it. And then they would have to dig through. You wouldn't have any holes.
Right.
And then you could expand out and just.
Or you can even go the route of letting, do your first wall, set your first initial cannons, and then make little squares of territories, and then just secure your wall if you have the time, and just keep doing that where you just pocket a bunch of territories so that they're going to be, when it comes to the next round, they're going to be spreading their attack out so thin that there's no way you can lose because you'll be repairing so easily around the castles.
That's interesting. Now I think I'm going to try and do it.
Me too. I was like, man, this game is deeper than it looks. It's actually remarkable. And I feel I don't want to get the cat out of the bag, I don't really want to jump too far ahead, but I was extremely surprised by the depth in this game. It comes off very simplistic initially.
Right.
Even my son was watching me play, like I said earlier, and he said, I want to try it. And he's like, tried to play it for the first time. He's like, I don't get this. He didn't even know how to hold the controller correctly because it was like the Wii controller, I had to hand him the Wii Pro retro controller. Within 10 minutes, he was addicted. Like he got past the first 2 levels, and he was like celebrating, and I heard him. He's doing it all on his own. And he's like, oh yeah. And he was like really into it in 10 minutes. My son doesn't play retro games really.
Yeah.
He's all about Roblox or he's about Minecraft, and that's it. And he was like really engaged in this. And he was like, what's the name of this game? And he wanted to start looking it up on YouTube. I'm like, well,
yeah, you're not going to find anything.
You're not going to find much.
Yeah.
You're going to find some videos that are very old.
Yeah.
But God bless it. That was also a sign to me, like, wow, doesn't happen very often and I play a lot of games, different consoles, different eras, very rarely. And my son, with this podcast, he's been watching me play these games a lot, and he'll ask, and I will end that section of the story with saying I will just conclude on that story by saying he told me, never play Blood Rain again. And we should play this more.
Oh, see, that's
what my son said. That's interesting.
That is.
And he's like, there's 2 players?
Oh, yeah.
I was like, yeah. And I'm like, I haven't played it yet, but now we have. And it's a whole different ballpark.
Yeah, dude. It's a completely different game, which, I mean, do you want to talk about the 2-player now?
Absolutely. Let's go.
The multiplayer?
Yeah, because I think we've covered the single player pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot more other than with the increased difficulties, you get the different enemies more,
right? And
it will change your tactic a little.
There's only 6 levels, but that's all you need.
I was so close too.
Yeah,
damn.
It's only 6 levels, so I made it to the 6th, and I didn't even get. I was just on a good run. It's one of those games that you got to be like your wavelength has to hit.
Yeah.
And you're just like feeling it. You're in that mode.
There is a slight bit of RNG with just like
there's a lot of RNG.
What pieces you're gonna get on whether you're gonna have a good run or a bad run.
And it's all about like the straight pieces that don't curve. Like if you have the smaller, longer pieces, just like in Tetris, everybody loves the big long straight piece. that thing's a godsend in this game too.
I've found that one ruining my day though sometimes.
I don't know how. Other than like you needed to fill a spot and it's all like, you're getting.
All I'm getting is big long pieces, and I'm like on the coast, and all I have is
and you can't move into the water. You can't even move your cursor into the water.
Yeah, like where it's just like I just need. Please give me just a little one block.
How did you feel about that when you discovered when you had to go over and start working on a different thing and you realized you couldn't go through the ocean with your cursor?
You got to go.
You have to go across the land. And I was like, it made me so mad. I was like,
Yep. Cursor is only allowed to go in the ocean when the combat starts.
That's right. When it's a cannon cursor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's talk about multiplayer. So we experienced it. It gets rid of the naval combat.
Right.
So now you're just playing against two sides that identically have to secure bases, put cannons, and just go to war.
Yeah. And it is absolute madness.
It is.
It's just utter destruction on both sides.
And it's funny and it's nerve-wracking and it's hilarious.
Yeah. And trying to figure out like, how am I going to ruin this guy's day on the build phase? How many one space holes can I make?
That's kind of was I started doing that and I'm like, I'm going to get over him on this. And then I told you that and you're like, I was doing the same thing. I'm like, dang it.
This is like, no, I'm over here just being like, pop, 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 pop.
Yeah,
pop,
trying
pop,
to pepper
pop,
it,
yeah.
like make the jack-o'-lantern teeth on your wall.
Until I run out of space and I'm just like, I'm tearing the whole wall down.
Yeah, and it's easy because it's easier to repair a big open space than a space that has a couple pieces of wall left. Yeah. That's so funny. But it's fun. It's a fun multiplayer. I also read that the arcade version and some of the other console versions get up to 3 players.
3 players, yeah.
So
that sounds hectic as hell.
Yeah. That sounds to me, I'm like, well, could you have like a sea battle person? Can somebody choose to be like ships? But then again, how would you
control the ships?
Right.
I mean,
how would you win?
Unless it was like, it would have to be a more modern system where you had a mouse and keyboard and you could play it like StarCraft or something.
Because then you just
set
firing.
like patrol paths. Yeah. But I mean, it would be interesting because you could be like team up and just like gang up on somebody.
Well,
and
anything that's more than 2 players, that's always an option, right? Especially in retro games.
Yeah.
We know this from just playing Monopoly on a board.
Right.
So
it's a lot harder to flip over a arcade cabinet than it is a game board.
Yeah, you got to be like Brock Lesnar.
But I would love to hunt down one of these arcade machines.
I know. I mean, there's probably a way too. I wonder if, let's see what it goes for. $2,200, you can get yourself a Rampart arcade cabinet.
Man, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Even for an arcade cabinet.
Not really these days, dude.
Really?
Well, I mean, pinball is definitely.
I thought they went for like 800.
They do, but it depends, man. I mean, there are some Nintendo ones that are like absurd.
Oh, I bet.
Play choice ones. Our local arcade actually has play choice ones with actual Castlevania on it. Like,
oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, this game, it was one thing that I found interesting and I kind of felt like I missed out on was that it was released for the Game Boy as well. And I'm like, this would be a great Game Boy game.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah, I don't care about the limitations of the Game Boy at that point because I feel like it could pull off what it did on the NES. Fine on the Game Boy.
It doesn't have any color.
It won't have the flair.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care about the animations. I feel like, that'd been a great game.
I'm pretty sure the ships just go poof when they die.
Instead of like a fire they could just literally disappear. And I'm like, I'm happy.
Do a flash and then they're gone.
Right. The strategy's still there. I think the soul would have stayed, but I don't know how well it was translated. But I thought about that because I owned a Game Boy and I always had a lot of games.
I could see the battle map size being an issue.
Yeah.
Because of the screen size. Do you only have so many pixels to work with?
I'm sure that it was, but then again, dude, Super Mario Land, Metroid 2, they would make it work.
Yeah.
Or they may have, I don't know. I'll have to see what it even looks like. That's something else I'm going to look up right now. Let's see what it looks like. Rampart on the Game Boy. Okay.
What I'm interested in is like what the SNES version is like.
This is actually impressive.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna move over and look.
Yeah, look.
Oh, that's a lot better than I thought it was gonna be.
That's not too much of a far cry from its NES. That's not bad. I wonder if it's one of those situations where you have to move the cursor over to see the rest of the screen.
You know what I bet? I bet you just looking at it, that it actually switches views.
Mm-hmm.
And
from building to attack.
So like you see a very rudimentary version of what you have in the attack phase. So you can actually see the ships and move your cursor around, and then it'll switch back to that screen. So you can't actively look at the damage that's happening while you're fighting. But like we said, you typically don't do that anyways.
Right.
It's kind of,
you're focused on one thing or the other
at a glance at the end. The only thing that would be different is you can't do that strategy that I was talking about where you blow up your own stuff.
You're right though. Yeah, it does it limits you on certain strategic moves that you can do on other consoles.
But I just seeing that screenshot, I think it would still be a fun translation. It would be a great car trip game.
It's impressive because it doesn't look much different.
No.
So also it was released on the Game Boy Advance with Gauntlet in a 2-pack.
Ooh, that's a killer 2-pack right there.
Yeah, so with updated graphics. So that's kind of cool. Right now, if you wanted Rampart, if you want to own it, it's $40 complete in box or $15. And we're talking about the version we played, or $15 loose. Kind of considering it. But maybe before I say that, let's get to our final verdict of the game. I'll let you start, Mr. Miller.
Final verdict. This is a play. This is a play, especially if you have I think this is one of those hidden treasures.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you have the original console and you're a collector, this is a must-have in your collection.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because of the utility of the 2-player option. It would be a great party game.
It really would, because
like it's something that you can swap in and out real quick. It doesn't require a whole lot of like instruction.
No,
especially the 2-player, because
my 7-year-old son took 10 minutes.
Yeah.
To be addicted to it, and I don't see him do that.
And we didn't even touch on in the multiplayer that how more forgiving it is if you don't finish your wall.
That's right.
Especially if both people
both don't finish your wall, it restarts the timer.
Yeah, and then so
you get to rebuild.
You have a whole secondary building phase, which honestly kind of changes. Like you could both just be like, no build,
just looking at each other. like he's not going to finish that, so I'm not going to finish it.
So I'm not going to finish it.
Yes, I'm going to focus on this,
and then you can expand even more.
Right.
And so it's an interesting take on that, but I would say definitely. If
you give it your hidden gem certification.
Yep, 100%.
Okay, there you have it from Mr. Miller. So my feeling on Rampart is it's a great example of easy to learn, hard to master. It's a wonderful arcade port with enough replayability to warrant like short game sessions, but also if you want to sit down and try to beat the game, it's going to take you like an hour or two. You're never going to be bored. And the multiplayer adds a completely different level of entertainment that we just experienced.
Yeah.
Like right before we recorded this podcast, the game feels tight. It feels inviting, it takes only a few rounds to fully grasp the mechanics. I find the graphics and the sound charming. Nothing crazy.
I mean, for the time, it's actually pretty good.
It's okay. It works. It's not bad. The gameplay can make you feel nervous, but also victorious. With all that said, I give Rampart for the NES my hidden gem status. It is. I could say it's good, but I think this is a legitimate hidden gem.
Yeah.
I think everybody should try to play this game. I recommend trying to find a copy because it's fun. It's just like discovering a board game you didn't know was classic. And this in itself feels like its own thing, and it's fun. I played it every day this week, and now I'm going to play it after the podcast because we just shared strategies.
Yeah.
I'm going to play it with my son. Like 100%, this thing is a great game, and I'm surprised because I didn't even know this game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna keep it on my phone.
Yeah.
It's gonna be I got downtime at work and I got nothing to do. I'll fire up.
Yeah,
Rampart.
and then because you figured out things I didn't even realize, and you're playing on a smaller screen than I am. I got a full controller.
Yeah, I can't even feel my buttons. I'm over here.
There you go, everybody. Rampart is the first game on our show to get hidden gem certification, so it's not garbage.
Ding.
Yeah, and I definitely had more enjoyment from it than Blood Rain, but Blood Rain, wasn't complete garbage. So I don't recommend it over this. So anyways, it is that time. So we get to choose the game.
Oh yeah. This is the first time we're doing it live.
Yeah, it is. Also, and last time so how we do this on Super Garbage Day is every week one of the two hosts go back and forth choosing the console. We don't get to choose the game, we choose the console. And we go to what I've coined as the Wheel of Retro. We'll decide what game we play for the next episode.
So what's your console choice this week?
I was between the SNES and the PC.
Both good choices.
And I landed on the PC.
PC? Okay.
So I'm going to pull up my list of PC games that I assume neither of us have played that's at least 20 years or older. And we are going to do the drawing.
Spin that wheel!
Wheel of Retro! Oh, God.
We're gonna get sued.
I'm gonna get some voice. I need to hire some voice artists for that one because I didn't sound enthusiastic. All right. So the game chosen was released 1996 from a company called Acclaim. That's a publisher. It's developed by Pulse Entertainment.
Okay.
And the game's called Bad Mojo.
Bad Mojo. Yeah, I've never played it.
And apparently it's a game where you play as a cockroach.
Interesting.
So for the next week, we are playing Bad Mojo on the PC.
Bad Mojo on the PC. All right, let's look that up.
If anybody out there listening to this show wants to give us game suggestions or comments or wants to ask a retro question we can answer on air, please reach out to us at supergarbageday@gmail.com. We do have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/supergarbageday. We have a Discord I just created, and I will figure out how to get that link out there. I'll probably put it in the show notes. But other than that, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week for Bad Mojo. My name is B. Ross. This is
Mr. Miller.
And we will see you next time.
Have a good night. We love you.
Bye.
Thank you for watching with my dad. I just want to say everybody, guys, bye. 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 Bye.